You
hmm
can pay a lawyer maybe 2% and maybe someone to manage that. But what it means, you can possibly, maybe buy two houses. Hello and welcome, Daisy. Thank you so much for coming through to the podcast. I know you are joining from Cameroon, so this
Yes.
is quite exciting that I will be having this conversation with you. Daisy Gobina is a social entrepreneur and programs manager. I've worked with her in several programs, but initially I met Daisy at the University of British Columbia. That was in 2014, so we have a long-standing friendship. I have learned quite a lot from Daisy in many ways and collaborated with her. But today we are going to have a conversation about her story, her journey here in Canada, completing a master's degree, and also now currently some of the work that she's doing in Cameroon. The goal is to share these experiences so that we can learn from each other. So please help me welcome Daisy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you for the platform. And I'm loving what Streetwise is doing. Um, Obviously, encouraging responsible investing
Yes.
and mostly encouraging people to invest. It's
Yes.
something that is worthy and I love it.
Yes, I feel it's a very important conversation because, when I grew up, we never discussed about personal finance on the dinner table.
Yes,
And,
yes.
some of the lessons that I've learned in life, I realized if I knew about compound interest, about some things, I would be probably way ahead. But today it's your day. So, do you care to tell us a little bit more about yourself? Who is Daisy?
Okay. So where do I start in this conversation? Like all the way back or just a brief summary?
Whatever you feel like sharing.
Whatever. All right, cool. So I'll just start from where we met. I guess we
Yeah.
are at UBC. I think I was a second or third year
Yes.
doing political science, economics at UBC.
Yes.
And you're in your master's program then. And later on, worked for a bit
Hmm.
in supply chain logistics for
Yes.
two tech companies. And then later on, went on to do my master's program
Hmm.
um, at Queen's in business and innovation, entrepreneurship. And
Hmm.
then later on, worked again supply chain. And now I'm really, really focused on education
Hmm.
and helping drive and help young people to gain the skills that they need. One,
Hmm.
to make them employable,
Hmm.
competitive,
Hmm.
and they should think local
Hmm.
and also global at the same time, right? Because
Hmm.
as a Cameroonian, there's a specific advantage we have. We're already bilingual,
Yes.
and so it
That
makes
is
us
French and
stand out.
English. Sorry to interject, is it?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, French and English.
Hmm.
And a good chunk of the world
Hmm.
speaks one of those languages. And in terms of employability, we should be up there. So yeah, that's
That's
about it right now.
that's a terrific story. I'm gonna follow up because I know there are some games in what you said. I know you worked
Uh-huh,
for Apple, which is one, of the big tech firms in the world. At some point, it was the largest
uh-huh.
firm or company in the world. Now I think it's Nvidia.
Yeah.
So tell me about the experience of, what it was to, to work for such a big organization because, I love Apple products as well.
I think it's one of those life-changing moments, and it's one of those key experiences that really build you up when
Yes.
you're a young person getting into the workforce, right? Because they teach you a certain level of excellence,
Mm-hmm.
and in their experiences, they talk a lot about presentation, how you
Mm-hmm.
communicate,
Mm-hmm.
and they really encourage active listening because
Mm-hmm.
um, the key was to solve problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
For
critical
clients.
thinking. And so, yes, and so there were a
Mhm.
lot of times wherein this was not something that we sold in a store, right? But
Yes.
it was something that we knew, like they at the time they had a lot of customizations I could do online
Hmm.
and things like that. And so The excellence, I think also the bonding, the
Hmm.
friendships,
Yes.
because when you're hired and you come and you meet people who are there,
Yes.
you're really a team, right? And you
Yes.
know that your role is valuable and key to
Hmm.
achieving the overall success and the metrics, right?
Hmm.
Attaining those KPIs. Yeah. So I think it's one of those experiences that I don't know how to explain it. Obviously, there are
Yeah.
some things I cannot say,
Of
but
course.
I don't know
Yeah.
how to. I don't know how
Yeah.
to explain it such that somebody understands. But
Yeah.
it's really excellence all the time, and that's what they are.
Yeah. And would you think, was it because of your education that enabled you to land on such an opportunity? Because I mean, at some point, I also remember applying to Apple, but I didn't make the cut. Or maybe it was not a good fit for them and for me. So, is there anything that you think if someone who may be listening from Africa, from Canada here, or from any part of the world would say, oh, this is something that you thought, at that point, probably help you to land that job?
Education is key for
Yes.
sure.
Hmm.
Um, However, they focus on skills,
Hmm.
right? And this focused on we had how would I say it? Like team projects
Hmm.
and during the interview that we had to do. And
Hmm.
so it was about how you performed on the team, how you communicated with
Hmm.
others, how you patiently involved all your team members in
Hmm.
creating the solution that you guys came with, and then eventually the presentation at the end that will allow the different managers to look at you and then evaluate you, and
Hmm.
then eventually. But the way I even got the interview, I applied like for 3 months. I
Yeah.
applied based on after a career fair in school actually,
At
and
UBC.
somebody encouraged me. Yes, and somebody encouraged me to apply. I was on the bus and I was going back home. The bus
Yes.
number 25. I was
Wow.
going back and I think the manager was getting off at one of the stations.
Yes.
And we're just talking, and I was telling him how I had a class which ran a little late. So I
Yes.
didn't get to explore the career fair to its full potential, like go around
Yeah.
handing in my CV and all of that. And
Yes.
so he told me, "Oh, why don't you apply?" And I applied. And I thought that, okay,
Hmm.
I'm going to hear from them at some point. But then it took like 3 months before they got back to me. And
Wow.
so I will not say that I did something specific, but definitely I think the CV was good based on
Yes.
help from like the career center at the
At
time.
UBC.
And
Yeah.
yes, and yeah, that was it. And then I was in. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think education helped for
Yes.
knowledge, and the other parts is stuff
Yes.
that is
Right.
learned from extracurricular activities.
So what was your experience like, uh, being in Canada, as a student and also working here? And now I know you are based in Cameroon and you travel across the continent and also even around the world. What has been your experience? Like, what can you say, to someone who may be thinking of, coming to Canada or also coming to Cameroon? What has been some experiences that you would like to share?
I'm going to say one of my favorite quotes that I learned from Gateman, and he says, "Assume nothing." That
Okay.
means come with an open mind and really come just ready to soak in, to learn from people.
Yes.
I also say make good decisions in terms of friends,
Mm-hmm.
and because I would say the circle around you either makes you or breaks you. I feel that
Yes.
some of the relationships I had were either they encouraged me to keep going when I was down,
Yes.
they were able to assist me with my studies.
Yes.
People who had they were able to direct me, maybe people who had already walked that path
Yeah.
before. The other thing too is that I also had family, like my
Yes.
mom too had been, so
Yes.
it was a little bit different because I learned a lot from her, and some of her friends they were able to guide me,
Yes.
so I didn't just go blind
That's
and all.
mentorship,
I
right?
There was some research that I also carried out on my own side to know
Yes.
as much as I could. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot of mentorship. And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing is, I don't think I did it, but I should have really take advantage of some of all those info sessions that they had that seemed like it was overwhelming, but then you just never attended some of them.
And you'll be
Maybe
see.
attending some of those too would have helped to really, because
Mm-hmm.
whether it's UBC or even out, because a lot of
Yes.
things was, I'll say that it's about understanding the system of where you're going to operate, right?
Yes. Mm.
And if you don't understand the system, then how do you win? And
Yes.
that's one thing that people just go and they go saying, oh, we're going for a better life, but without really understanding what kind of political system are you going into, what
Mm-hmm.
kind of education system is it like, do I
Mm-hmm.
have the funds to continue? How do I strategize? And all those things, um, you do need to make a plan. And so, yeah, I believe that um,
That
there's a lot
help.
of planning involved, there's a lot of information gathering involved, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's a lot of synthesizing and analyzing that information. Yeah. Every most things, if there's a problem, it could be an opportunity. I need to do a little SWOT to make sure that it is what.
And Daisy, thanks for sharing that. And I know you went to Queens and you did your master's. That was master's in what? Again, entrepreneurship, right? The your master's. Do you wanna
Yes,
share
management
a little bit more about
innovation
that?
and
Yes.
entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay, so this is a program really focused on for creatives and innovators, right? Because entrepreneurs exist um, outside,
Mm-hmm.
like have individual businesses, and entrepreneurs also exist within companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you have a lot of companies that have like an innovation wing.
Mm-hmm.
And what an innovation wing does is that they are doing research and trying new things
Yes.
and coming up with business cases on
Mm-hmm.
either creating new revenue streams for companies
Yes.
or adding more value to already existing services or products, right? And
Yes.
so almost everybody who was there
Yeah.
was highly creative,
Yes.
um, high project management skills, and
Mm-hmm.
also they had a lot of deep either experience or network, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was an amazing time in Kingston. I loved
Yes.
it. It was a
Yes.
small town,
Yes.
and everybody knew everybody, and
Yes.
slightly cheaper than Vancouver for sure.
Yes. And Kingston is in Canada, in Ontario, for just for context.
In
Uh,
Ontario, in
Yes,
Ontario.
yes. And another thing that, a lot of my friends back home, they just assume that Canada is small. And I tell them like Canada is, about like one third of the whole African continent. Of course, 80% of it, is oceans and forests, and the population is sparsely populated. So if I wanna fly
Hmm.
to Ontario, it's gonna take me 5 hours, flying time. So that is more like someone flying from maybe South
Yeah.
Africa to Addis Ababa,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But it's within the same country. So just for context. So Canada is,
Yes. Yes.
is a very big,
It's
it's a
it's
yes,
crazy.
diverse country as well. And
No,
now,
no, no. It's very big.
yes. So, how has this education, has it been, applicable to your life? Because, someone might be saying, "Oh, okay, so you are now an entrepreneur." I know I've worked with you at your foundation as well. I hope
Hmm.
the projects and programs are going on well. Do you want to share
Yeah.
about us, how you are finding, what you studied in school? How is it applicable and the kind of impact that you are making in the beneficiary's life?
Okay. Uh I think that the program has been very key, and I think it's just shaped my mindset on a lot of things. Um if I'm working within an organization, which I did right
Mhm. Mhm.
after finishing,
Mhm.
what that did for me was to be able to look at the current processes, how
Mhm.
to improve it,
Mhm.
be able to write a plan on
Yes.
how to improve it
Yes.
and make a case on if money has to be spent towards that
Yes.
improvement
Mm-hmm.
and what will be the cost savings
Yes.
and all, and really understand change management within organizations because that's a very difficult thing to do, especially if you come and meet somebody who has been in the job for the last 20, 15 years and they've
Yes.
been doing things in a specific way, right?
Okay.
How do you get their buy-in for them to
Yes.
be able to change that and all?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's not without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been like that's the way I think and I just see life right now.
Yes.
That every most things, if there's a problem, it could be an opportunity. I need to
Mm.
do a little SWOT to make sure that it is one.
Yes.
And then if it's positive, then I add some additional
Wonderful.
research to it. And then try to understand how do I start something really fast without necessarily investing an arm and a leg when it comes to my personal finances, and then kick up from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to put the link to Delphin Foundation so that if there are people who would like to support, your cause, they can, definitely reach out to you, Daisy.
Oh, absolutely. That's fine.
Yes. And now I'm curious about your personal finance and investing experience. I know when I came to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
I also say this, I didn't know, like how to use the credit card and stuff like that. Did you kind of like have that experience and that aha moment?
No, I didn't have one. I
Mhm.
didn't have a credit card until I think after my first degree
Yeah,
because it was just that thing of living within like your
your
means, like
means.
what you
You're very
had
disciplined.
was
Yes.
what, yes. No, not that I was very disciplined. There were just some months that I just sit down and cry.
Yeah.
There's just nothing you can do, right? Because
Yes.
you just have to live like that. And if it's your last 50, 100 bucks in your account, then that's what it is. And that's what you have. And
Yes.
everything. um you could ask a friend to help you out and then the next month, but then that means the next month you're eating into your finances, so you're already
Yes.
$50 down from what you
Yes.
borrowed. So I wouldn't say that I was perfect and all of that, but I didn't have one because
Mhm.
one, I didn't even know that there was one, so I didn't have the
Mhm.
information that there was
Yes.
one, right? So
Mhm.
because I didn't know, so I couldn't access it. Yeah.
Yes.
And it wasn't cause of anything special. No, I didn't just
Okay.
know that
Okay.
they were giving people free money.
Yes. In quotes.
In quotes, yeah, in quotes. That's it. That's the real one. In quotes, yeah. Put that there, yeah.
And now, what are your views on personal finance and investing? I mean, it's not investment advice, of course, just to be clear. But what has been the experience, for you, the most powerful thing, when it comes to building wealth, as an individual?
I would say that the most powerful thing is budgeting,
Hmm.
and then keeping goes to. One of the things that I've learned whilst I was there was to keep some money in TFSA,
Yes.
TSFA. I don't know how to call it, but it's
Yeah,
something along
tax-free
those
savings
lines.
account.
Yes, so I had this or have had, I still have
Yes.
like a standing that just goes there and
Yes.
all. And with that, um, that's how I've kept stuff for like future
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Um, Other than that, I don't really have anything
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
with banking and
Yeah.
all the different programs organized by the government. But then
Yes.
when it comes to stock, my first introduction into stocks
Yeah.
was the employee stock option at the
Hmm.
company.
Yes.
And there was this guy called Scott, and
Yes.
this older white guy. He had like a
Yes.
lot of experience on like a lot of things.
Yes.
And he took it upon himself to just always educate us, the younger
Wow.
ones, on what to do
Yes.
with our money.
Yes.
And he was like a strong believer in like the stocks, and
Yes.
he was like he had his companies that like
Yes.
he was a long like, so right now I'll term him a long-term guy. Like he's a
Yes.
long-term guy. He's not
Yeah.
day trading and everything.
Yeah. Long-term
And
investor.
so he had his like yeah, so he's a long-term investor. So he had his stocks that he believed in, and
Yeah.
most of them were companies he had worked for
Yes. Understood them.
over the period of time because yes, he understood them, he knew the business.
Hmm.
So he always told me like, "Oh, what are you doing?" It's like, "What do you do? Like, are you paying rent?
Yes.
How much do you spend on feeding? How much do you spend on that?" And then I was
Yes.
like, "Okay, this is very personal. You know, in Canada, everything is
A
personal,
very
and you
personal
should not
space.
be intruding in anybody's space." Yes, so I always wonder, like, why is Scott asking me all these questions? Anyways, one day I decided to share
Yes.
because, like, he was
Yes.
persistent.
Yes.
And he told me, oh, cut like a certain percentage of your paycheck and it should go all
Automate.
into like
Yeah.
the Apple stock.
Hmm.
Yes. And I was like, Scott, that's pretty high. Like, if I had stuff to do, like, what am I going to do? And he's like, just do it, Daisy.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay. He's like, you're going to thank me long term. And I really want to
Yeah.
thank him now because he really
Yes.
started that. So I was always putting it. And as an employee, I bought the stock too at a
For
discount,
Apple,
right?
right? Apple stock.
So yeah, we did that and everything. Yes, yeah. And then I did that for like like all the time I was there. Like I
Hmm.
did that every month.
Hmm.
And also, yeah, so when I left
Hmm.
and everything, then they did like a stock split. And I was
Yes.
like, what? And then they did a stock split. And then
Hopefully
I
it
was
didn't
like,
sell.
this is crazy. Like this,
You had quite a
no,
number of shares. Thankfully.
that's the
Wow.
point.
Yes. You had more shares
Yeah. So I
quantitatively.
was like, okay, this thing is something that
Hmm.
exactly. So it was like split 1 to 7. Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
So with that, then I started looking more into it, right? And
Hmm.
then I think some of my friends, Z,
Yes.
yourself, like they
Yeah.
started talking about it a little bit. And then I have
Yes.
one of my friends too, some of my friends in Cameroon who study finance also, they
Yes.
always asked
Yeah.
questions about it. And so I started looking more into it and
Hmm.
understanding.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I think one of the ways and my methodology is just really based on what I was first introduced to.
Yes.
If you understand the company, then that's
Exactly.
great because
Mhm.
I am in supply chain and so I'm
Yes.
able to look at how the company operates, what is their business
Hmm.
model, see where the cash is bleeding based on
Yes.
what they are doing,
Yes.
and then I'm able to make a decision on that. But I'm a way long term person,
Yes.
and I don't day trade mainly because I don't have time
Yes.
to look at it every day to make those changes.
Exactly.
But if I believe in it, then I go.
Everybody, wants to eat. So agriculture is definitely a very interesting opportunity to invest in.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Just to kind of like pick some games that you shared there, Daisy. You spoke about
Mm-hmm.
automating in your investing decisions because what it means is, let's say you are making $100. If you say, okay, I'm gonna automatically deduct 30%, so that means $30 every paycheck. In Canada, mostly people get paid every
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks. So you say every 2 weeks you take 30%, but that's generally very high, for most people. For me, I'm quite aggressive, so I can even go 50%. Of course, it depends on your income. So you do that without thinking. But what that does is that
Oh wow.
it
Uh-huh.
kind of like forces you to say, oh, now I have $70 left. So now maybe I'm gonna pay for, the basic living expenses and other things. But
Mm-hmm.
already you have already made the decision to invest. Now, the second thing now is where to invest that
Mm-hmm.
money. And you emphasize the point of investing in things
Yeah.
that you understand. So, what people do, everyday millionaires that I meet and talk to, usually they just do things that they use every day. I'm using a MacBook here. I have, in iPad, I have all these gadgets. Each time that I go to Apple Store, as an example, I see there are lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I also go on their financials, online and see. And one
Yes.
thing that I've consistently seen is that the Apple stock has been going up, just as an example. It's not investment advice. And I look at the cash that they
Mm-hmm.
have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cash, like you spoke about, research and development,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
whichever way that I look at, Apple stock, and they are also, in China and in other parts of the world, and I think they have, almost about, 30% of the market share. So what it means is they
Mm-hmm.
also have competitive advantage. They have money, there's a well-known brand. So a lot of people, they make money that way. And it's a
Yes.
way of actually, building wealth. So I thought I would just,
Yeah.
share that. But for you as an insider who worked in Apple as an example, and you also apply your skills in supply chains and management, that's fantastic. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, they think it's complicated, and I always say this is not investment advice. The S&P 500, for example, it has returned 10% over the past 100 years. And of course, the past does not guarantee the future, right? So it means,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if, for example, if
No,
it's
no, it
going to
doesn't. No.
happen, yes. But, basically, some people, that's what they do, right? You have inflation, it's about 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Canada, in the
Yeah,
US,
I agree
maybe,
with you.
yes. So if you get
Yeah.
7% real return over a long period of time, that can, potentially. And again, this is not a
Okay,
lot of
that's
money.
good.
You can just set aside $50, $10, right? And I'm very passionate about
Uh-huh.
this. So now, in conclusion, Daisy, I know a lot of people, like, girls and boys around the world, they might be wondering, like, what is it like to be in Cameroon? I know it's home for you, right? What are
Mm-hmm.
the things
Yes.
that you have had to adjust to, like, for you to be productive there?
Uh, so I will say that it comes with its own challenges
Hmm.
and successful for sure.
Hmm.
Definitely, I see a lot of opportunity
Hmm.
in different areas, different sectors.
Hmm.
Um, Key ones, definitely agriculture.
Hmm.
Um,
Everybody, wants to eat. So agriculture is definitely a very interesting opportunity to invest, especially in developing countries and even in developed countries.
it is very important that everyone eats. Everyone has goes to school to learn a
Yes.
skill
Yes.
and be employable. And it's very important that they are able to afford healthcare, right? And
Yes.
in these areas, although maybe in Canada and everywhere else in the world,
Hmm.
um, it's probably very difficult to get
Yes.
into.
Yes.
Um, every country in terms of how fast they've developed in these sectors is very different, right?
Hmm.
And so I do see that there is a lot of opportunity to be part of, partake, right,
Hmm.
in investing with agriculture, technology, transformation, manufacturing, because
Hmm.
when it's high season, it's high yields, high output. What do we
Yes.
transform all our stuff, our products into such that we can later on preserve it? It has
Hmm.
a longer shelf life and
Hmm.
is able to be exported to on like long haul transport and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And so when I look at it, I see these really three sectors important. A fourth sector that is really, really coming up and very strong. And I think that a lot of people know that that's a sector and are kind of investing in there is real estate.
Hmm.
Sustainable housing and most especially affordable housing because the
Yes.
cost of housing like rental income
Yes.
is taking close to 30-40% of families' incomes right now.
Yes.
And so, how do we bring down the costs? I think that
Yes.
that's the key thing
Yeah.
since I got here. And so, not to say that tech is not it's not
Yeah.
a sector that I would consider.
I think a lot of people, when it comes to real estate, they say, "Oh, where do I get the millions to, to get started to build the houses?" So do you have any kind of like idea to say, you know, some options for financing or ideas to kind of like navigate that challenge?
So far, most of our age mates that I've seen going to real estate, either to do their first home and all, they just
Yes.
started, right?
Yes.
Like they drew up they have a piece of like a plot, a
Yes.
land, and
Yes.
then they did a design with an architect that was
Yes.
costed.
Yes.
They probably had big dreams. They cut it down a little bit to be
Yes.
more
Realistic.
like what they can afford at the moment.
Yes.
But a lot of them, yes, a lot of them build still, and they build with the hope and preparation. So if you want to say you want to have a two-story house, you
Yeah.
have to do a foundation that is proper enough for like a two-story house. So they might do the first floor, the ground
Yes.
floor, and
Yes.
then down the road, when they do have the cash, they do the next floor, right?
Yes. Yes.
But one thing a lot that I'm also seeing happen is that you see a lot of people come together under like a cooperative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's your own way of micro investing into real estate, where the cooperative then does real estate buildings, and a percentage of what is collected from rent that comes
Yeah.
to you, right? And also,
Mm-hmm.
one other thing I've seen that it's not yet common that
Mm-hmm.
is to see friends or peers come together and say, we're
Yes.
going to do this project.
Yes.
And they don't have all the money, but they've
Mm-hmm.
saved up some of it. They
Yes.
put it in together.
Yes.
And obviously, there's a lot of paperwork that's involved, like with the
Yes.
lawyer and everything. And they
Yes.
go ahead and do the project. So you see a lot of young people being daring, and they're trying different things and new things and
Yes.
coming up with different models on how to be part of this real estate boom that is happening. And
Yes.
so definitely, this is not investment advice
For
still, but this is
sure.
not to say that they are not unscrupulous people
Yes.
in the pipeline, right? Because you have
Yes.
people who are very mischievous and all of that. And I think
Yes.
that because of that trust and
Yes.
all, but the idea of escrow is coming up more and more, and you see the idea of escrow coming up even with some e-commerce platforms now,
Yes.
wherein a customer pays for something, the
Yes.
person who is the person who is the supplier or the vendor supplies it, but the
Yes.
money is held in escrow to say the customer has to say, "Oh, I received it." You send a
Yes.
picture to
Yes.
verify, and then the supplier says, "I delivered," and verify to hand over, right? And the
Yes.
product is checked to make sure that it's okay. And if you don't want it, in that moment, you have the possibility of saying no, and the money comes back to you. So there are
Exactly.
different things that are coming up. And like if friends come together to put money, they don't put the
Mm.
money in somebody's account.
Exactly. In
It's
it,
not in
maybe in a
somebody's
trust
account. It's in
account
an
or
account that
something.
has been created
Hmm.
for that project.
That is regulated.
Exactly. So the
Mhm.
whole idea of escrow, yes, in its very funny,
Yeah.
nuanced way, is
Yes.
it's seeping in into
Yes.
this thing to start building trust. And I think that the idea of social trust,
Yes.
it's very high. At the same time, it's also very low. And
Yes.
that's one thing that's really weird here,
Yes.
because you have a situation wherein you can definitely meet somebody or a family member who is well
Yes.
off, who can
Yes.
give you some money that, hey, start a business or come
Yes.
work for me.
Yes.
But then you also have the situations wherein, because there's that familiarity and that relationship is not there,
Yeah.
and you haven't proven yourself, then you don't also get access to that. And
Yes.
so I always tell people, and there's a show that I watched that I heard one of the creators of the show say this,
Yes.
and she's like, most times we always try to network up, right,
Yes.
vertical, but we
Hmm.
miss being networking horizontally, right, amongst
Mm.
people who are at the same level with
Same
you,
PS. Yeah.
because you grow together. Yeah, you
Hmm.
grow together, and then all of you are like at a similar point,
Hmm.
compared to always trying to meet people who are up
Yes.
and everything. Because if you do stuff with people who are at the same level with you, whether
Yes.
it's socioeconomic, education,
Yes.
like every way that you think about it, it's
Yeah.
easier for you to build up a resume or a CV to say
Yes.
that these are the things that I have done,
Yes.
and then go network upwards, than
Yes.
to start from the beginning and say, hey, I want to go upwards. Because
Yes.
then how does somebody verify that you've done these things, and how do they take you seriously? Right.
That's very
So
true. Hmm.
yeah, so it's very interesting seeing
Hmm.
different things here, but for sure, the system is very challenging.
Hmm.
Business climate is okay. It's easy for you
Hmm.
to start a business, but I think that what kills a lot of businesses here is definitely tax.
Hmm.
And so the taxes are pretty high.
Hmm. That is in Cameroon, right? As an example.
I think that's a problem across sense trying to raise money for other for the main means in those taxation. So I think that the next couple of years are good.
Yeah.
for us
Yes.
on the continent, and
Yes.
there's a lot of opportunity. And
Yes.
yeah, if you have friends who are trustworthy, for sure.
You can do another project,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what, some
Mm-hmm.
people do. So that's a very
Put
yes.
your money there, Isaac.
Yeah, I think I like the idea, Desi, that you spoke about because let's say think of this way. Let's say you have, 10 people who can bring together 10,000 each. That means 100,000. And what that means, you
Mm-hmm.
can pay a lawyer maybe 2% and maybe someone to manage that. But what it means, you can possibly, maybe buy two houses, let's say in
Mm-hmm.
Cameroon or in one part of the world, right? And then maybe you
Mm-hmm.
have a shareholding agreement in terms of the equity to say, you share, split the profits uh, by this percentage. And
Yeah.
then you do that, right? And then if you have a registered company, you can then possibly use that as, security, to say, okay, we
Mm-hmm.
have this incorporated business, and then so far we have assets that are worth 100,000. So we want to
Yes.
borrow against, this, right? And, when you run the numbers, you can do another
Mm-hmm.
project, right? So that's what, some
Mm-hmm.
people do. So that's a very good point. When I grew up in Zimbabwe, people would do that kind of a cooperative model to say, they say, they pay this person, they pay let's say they are five this month, and then at the same time, it's another way of saving. I'm a little bit
Yes.
different in the sense that I'm the kind of a person who is very conservative with risk. I'm kind of like,
Yes.
well, I'm gonna just put it in my savings account, you know.
Yes.
But I think it's a very good way of possibly raising capital, as long as
Yeah.
there are proper structures, proper mechanisms to say you have a structure, a
Yeah.
registered
Yeah.
business, whether it's a cooperative, there are laws in Canada, in all parts around of the world. And, as long as, there are structures to say, corporate structures, because you don't want one person to run away with the money. So, so
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. With
yeah,
regards to like cooperatives
yes,
and all, it's also those ones that have like a long history of like
yes,
existence, right?
yes,
In terms of um corporate governance, in
yes,
terms of the people who are heading, right?
yes,
And people who are true tested, they have some of really great skills, right?
yes,
So that's what we're seeing a lot, like coming up and all. So not like a one person thing. Also, probably taking a look at also how what is their structure in terms of membership,
yes,
when do they vote and things like that,
yes,
and nominating involvement from everybody who is a member, and not just a select few people who like come up
yes,
and say, hey, we're doing this and all, so there's a lot to take into also when you're doing stuff with like credit unions and
yes,
cooperatives too, in terms of due diligence, to really understand.
yes,
But trust me, a lot of people don't invest in credit unions here or bank with credit unions here
yes,
because they know it's like, oh, my mother's father was here.
yes.
And so we are here,
Wow.
because it works. And
Yes,
so the referral and word of mouth is still very, very strong. And in terms
yes,
of conversion, I
yes,
think that is higher than any ad or any thing that
yes.
you're going to put out and all, because there's still a lot of bias. Like
Yeah.
I know that a long time ago,
Yes,
my granddad, who is of blessed memory and
yes.
all, had told me about some insurance company
Mm.
who like ran away with his like insurance money.
Oh my
Till
gosh.
today, everybody in that generation, that era, that heard that story has nothing to do with that insurance
That
company.
is in
And I
Cameroon.
think they eventually left Cameroon. They were like they
Yes,
sold. Yeah, they
yes,
sold
yes.
because of that one bad
Decision.
incident, right? And
Yes,
so that's how it works. It's
yes,
still like very, yeah, it's still really, really based on the fact that, oh, your auntie, your uncle, your dad, your
yes.
mom, your
Referral
grandparents, like they were
system.
part of this. And so you make that decision
Yes,
exactly, especially for people who may not um have the possibility, like if you are a carpenter or welder, like still doing like some like jobs where it's like a small shop, right?
Yes.
Like a tailor or something.
Yes.
And to scale your business, it's probably going to take a lot of technology and you hiring more workers, but also
Yes.
hiring people
Yes.
and all of that. It's quite a lot of work too, right? And some people don't want to
Yes.
get involved with all of that. So they prefer to just remain small.
Yes.
Those and they can take care of their families and everything. They're not like
Yes.
lacking or stuff.
Yes.
But to for them to grow their income, usually that's how they get in. Like that's what they would do,
Yeah.
right? And for savings and all of that. And so that is a very, very tight, close-knit network. Like there's unions for like everything. You know, there's
Yeah.
reasons why car riding
Yes.
car hailing apps like Uber and stuff are not in certain markets or
Yes.
certain like they might be in a particular town but they're not in other towns because there's strong unions like that
Yes.
have existed from time immemorial that would not
Yes.
even allow that to happen. And so if you're an
Yes.
entrepreneur, you're a startup and you're trying to do something technology to regularize that, like change that, you need to go to these guys, the
Yes.
heads of the union, to get
Yes.
their buy-in for them, for their people
To
to start
allow you.
using it. Because when they say it,
Yeah.
then that's how it happens.
Wow.
And so it's very interesting the kind of systems that are in place and wherever you go as one thing, like I said here at the
Yeah.
beginning, wherever you go, understand the system that you're going into and how
Mm-hmm.
you're going to operate before
Yes.
like jumping in all the way for sure.
That's very important. That's why I like to have, friends from all over the world. I know next time if I wanna, work on a project in Cameroon, you will be my go-to
Yes,
person. If I wanna, have a project in Kenya, I will think of my Kenyan friends. Now, in
exactly.
conclusion, Daisy, is there something that you wanna share with us, with the audience as
Mm-hmm.
well as a parting shot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please go for it.
Um, what would I say as a parting shot? I would say that Um, since I came back, it's been a little bit different. We've
Yes.
I do share my time between both places, and so
Canada
I'm
and Cameroon,
definitely
right?
yes. So I definitely still see Canada like very fast paced, and
Yes.
people know what most people know what they want, and even if you're dangling, there's probably an opportunity for you to get like a minimum paying job or something
Yes.
and all. And if you do decide to transition upskill and stuff, there's a lot of programs and services that are in place for you to do that.
Hmm.
Here, there are people with a lot of degrees,
Yes.
but the quality of their work is not as good. And
Hmm.
so I'll advise a lot of young people all across Africa to really invest in skill development.
Yes.
That's what I'm gonna say because
Mhm.
um, if you cannot do something, then really, why do you get hired,
Yeah,
or
you
how do
won't add
you
much value. Yeah.
no, you don't add much value. How do you start a business and all of that? And with regards to, so I would say that it's a long journey, especially if you're in a place like Cameroon or anywhere across the continent. It's a long
Hmm.
journey. There's a lot
Hmm.
of patience, there's a lot of tenacity,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of probably switching circles and friendships such
Yes.
that you're in the right environment for you to be able to grow.
Hmm.
And so I just encourage a lot of young people to exercise patience, look at
Yes.
transferable skills. A lot of people get into jobs that
Hmm.
they never chose, like they just told them to do it because that was a
Yes.
mentorship they got, but they
Yes.
don't like it, right? And so how do
Mm.
you use your skills that you have from what you studied to move into something else that you actually truly love? Or where there is opportunity, because
Yes.
sometimes it's not about what you love, it's just about providing.